to an important piece of Black history that has brought fresh attention to a thriving community born from Alabama's dark past. In January of 2018, Alabama officials announced that divers had discovered the wreckage of the Clotilda, known as the last slave ship near Mobile, Alabama. The Clotilda had arrived in Alabama back in 1860, carrying 110 African prisoners to be sold into slavery decades after the practice of importing those who were enslaved was declared illegal. To hide their crime, the traffickers burned and then sunk the ship.
The Clotilda cargo numbered 110 West African captives being smuggled into the country against their will.
The story of the ship's survivors and their more than 160-year legacy is part of a new National Geographic documentary special airing tonight called Clotilda, Last American Slave Ship. And joining us now are two descendants, both from the family of Cudjo Lewis. Garry Lubbers is his great-great-grandson, and Altevese Rosario, his great-great-great-granddaughter. Welcome to you both to the show. We thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having us.
So, Garry, your family and families of other Clotilda descendants, they passed down the story of the Clotilda from generation to generation. Explain to us why it's so important to preserve that history and continue now to share it with the world.
For one thing, it's our story. And ever since I was 6 years old, my grandmama, she taught me the story. Her brothers taught me the story. So I was being quizzed, from the time I was 6 years old. So we all want to pass the story on to the generation, to the next kids that's coming up, so the story will never die.
And Altevese, you're also a descendant of Cudjo Lewis, one of the Clotilda's captives who was kidnapped in what is now Benin, West Africa. He was enslaved in Alabama for 5 years until emancipation. Tell us about your great-great-great-grandfather and who he was, who you've been told that he was.
All of my life, I've been told of his greatness. For him to have been captured at the age of 19 and brought into slavery and be enslaved for 5 years in a land where he had no relatives, no friends, no language, he didn't know the culture, and to have to be under those conditions, suppressed, and then to come out of it a victor, because that is what he was. That's what he became.
Garry, after Cudjo and other Clotilda survivors were freed, they set out to build their own community in Alabama. What did they do?
Well, actually, they wanted to buy land. First thing, they wanted to go home. So once they found out they couldn't go home, so they decided to make Africa Town their home, So they brought in their cultures, religions, and they had families, and they saved their money up, and they was able to purchase land.
And Altevese, Africa Town's founders wanted to create a life similar to the one that they left in West Africa once, as Garry just said, they realized they couldn't go back. So how did they go about doing that?
Well, the first thing that they did is that they all purchased land together as a collective in the same area. And they continue with their same practices, or as close as possible with their practices of governance, with their religion, until they converted to Christianity. They were raising their children with their African traditions and keeping them connected to Benin so that they could continue to pass on those traditions to their children.
And, of course, we were just seeing a few pictures of Africa Town. It still exists today. Altevese, what is it like at this moment?
It's not the same thriving community that it once was, which is very unfortunate. However, there are still a number of people who are there, descendants and communal folks alike, who still love the town. Unfortunately, there are a lot of environmental challenges because there have been a number of industries which have encroached upon the community and the land. So that's definitely a serious issue. And there are a lot of dilapidated housing, unfortunately, but it can grow back into its once thriving self.
I imagine that you are hopeful that it will do just that. And Garry, before I let you go, would just like to get a sense of what you'd like viewers to take away from the National Geographic documentary and from the Clotilda story at large.
Well, actually, I want them to know who we are because it was kept a secret for so long. And so now I feel that the world should know who we are. We always know who we were, but now we want the world to know who we are. We want the world to know what we went through.
Right. And Altevese, how about you? Your takeaway, what you'd like for viewers who watched it to come away with?
This is a part of lost American history. While, yes, this is our story and it is important to us, but it's also important to African Americans in this country. So many of us, too many of us, don't have the ability to point back to their very specific place in the African diaspora and say, this is where I'm from. And the fact that we're able to do that, we're very fortunate for that.
Altevese, Rosario, Garry Lubbers, we thank you both so much for your time, for being here tonight. National Geographic's Clotilda, Last American Slave Ship debuts tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern on the Nat Geo channel.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.